What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So yeah, pretty successful weekend for my USC Trojans. Only one little hiccup. I'll get into that in a bit. But yes, they did beat the Nevada Wolfpack 66-14. Pretty sure y'all didn't see my little short the other day, but yes, very fun night. Definitely got to see. It's surprising they blew out this team more and still saw less like total amount of players, like 10 minus that which played in the first game, which was kind of interesting. But a lot of the freshmen did step up, but especially like Caleb throwing for over 300 plus yards, passing, even rushing for like 40 something as well. Also had 5 touchdowns passing, and that even tied the record. I think it's 11 times that Matt Barkley did it, throwing at least 4 touchdowns in one game. So of course he already tied it in the second game and plays Stanford next week, who should be technically better. They did play pretty well against Hawaii, but if you're not playing well against Hawaii, then there's probably something wrong with your team. But they still look pretty formidable. That USC is probably going to give up a couple points, and that should probably give Caleb Williams more time out on the field to be able to throw another 4 to break that record. But either way, I'm pretty sure he will get it this year. But like I mentioned, the freshmen did step up, especially a lot of receivers and running backs on the offensive side. Zachariah Brandt once again opened up the game with a nice 20 to 30 yard touchdown reception, the first score of the game for USC, so that was cool. And even Quentin Joyner later in the second half, the running back, the freshman out of Texas, ran a pretty long 30 or 40 yard touchdown as well. And then Deuce Robinson, the top wide receiver / tight end, whatever he is nowadays, he ran another 30 or 40 yard touchdown also. And he's 6'6" and still beat the guy. Ran away pretty easily, looking like another Drake London out there. But yeah, either way, it was very successful, as I mentioned. And yeah, there was one mini hiccup. The Gino Quinones, the offensive lineman, who was more of the surprise starter, just because everybody thought, excuse me, he might be more of a backup player, especially on the interior, but he has been starting. And sadly, he did go down with an injury that he wasn't able to put a lot of pressure on one of his legs, so he had to get helped off the field and eventually carted off. And they say it's maybe not too serious, but to be able to not walk under your own power and get carted off at the same time eventually, there's probably something pretty major wrong in there, which sucks because it was his first time pretty much starting. He might, if it ends up going farther into the season and him not coming back at the end of the season and helping them win a championship, then he might as well just get a medical red shirt, because I'm sure he already burned his regular red shirt at some point early in his career, but he still have that medical, so he'd be in college for another year. But either way, it should help him out in the future, be able to stay with USC again for a couple more years. But either way, yeah, it does suck about that. And even the freshman linebacker, Tackett Curtis, well, for some reason in this game, a lot of the linebackers, especially the veterans, Eric Gentry and Mason Cobb, weren't suited up and not playing that game. Even a player like Raleek Brown, I'll get into him in a bit, wasn't playing either, suited up. But those two veteran linebackers we thought would be sorely missed, but luckily Tackett did step up for a quarter and a half until he made a pretty big hit, especially too high up, up above the shoulder area on a guy, and knocked off his helmet. So of course they had to look at it, and yeah, it kind of was targeting, I guess you could say that nowadays. And he was ejected, but luckily he was ejected in the first half, and so he will be available to come back in the next game against Stanford anyway, because you're usually only suspended for a half of football. So luckily they will still have that guy, and even luckily the other guy stepped up, Shane Lee, stepped up, the veteran linebacker, and also Rajon Davis, who was kind of buried in the depth of linebacker, and stepped up as well once Tackett went out of the game. So like what I saw from those guys, especially even the defensive lineman, Barry Alexander looked dominant. He looked like he was getting past the offensive line for 2 or 3 yards every single play he was out there, which is crazy. Jamil Muhammad once again had a couple nice plays. Even the freshman defensive end Braylon Shelby out of Texas had a nice strip sack that the senior veteran defensive lineman Stanley To'ofo ran back for a defensive touchdown as well. So nice victory overall. Want to look at my notes real quick to see if I missed anything. But yeah, either way, you got to be happy with that overall victory. I did have something put down here about Raleek Brown and Damani Jackson. Start with Brown first. So it looked like he was maybe dealing with a hamstring early in the week, and then he wasn't suited up as well. But then I think yesterday or at some point this morning, they did kind of release the statement that he is most likely going to be redshirting this year, and it's not because of an injury, but I'm assuming it's more kind of like the Gary Bryant Jr. situation last year, where there were just too much guys at that position. Wasn't going to get enough playing time for him to be able to be okay with that, going forward in his NFL career to get those reps. So ended up redshirting, and he's now up at Oregon. So I think Raleek Brown is going to do the same thing, redshirt, save this year, and then go transfer somewhere else after this season, which sucks because he was a 5-star talented player from Orange County at modern day, but he is a bit undersized for the running back position, so that's why I thought they kind of moved him to the receiver position. But even at that position at USC is always stocked up with guys, and even more guys coming in next year as well as freshmen, so he kind of saw the writing on the wall, and a lot of the freshmen too at running back this year are really good as well, and they might bring in another veteran or two on both sides next year. So either way, I don't feel any bad will towards Raleek Brown. Good luck to him and the rest of his future. And then I want to do a quick thought about Damani Jackson, because like I said last week, I kind of feel he should have always switched positions to whether it was one of the safety spots, especially like strong safety, or even a linebacker spot. And yet, once again, today, or the other day, he gave up a lot of big plays, at least 2 that I can remember, especially like early in the game too, like long completions, and then doing like trying to hit people too early and not locating the ball. So that was already like pass interference or, other stuff. So I don't know. I just don't know if he's mentally ready to play that cornerback position as so he thought. So if you just let him play, not too much going on in his head, let him roam free like in those safety positions or linebacker, I think it could benefit him even more. But yeah, this is the second straight game against supposedly not that good competition, and he's given up some pretty big plays. A couple other guys did as well, but they were more like the second string and all that other stuff, not getting enough playing time. But for a guy like him, as talented as he is, a top 5 overall player coming out of high school and a 5-star player, you'd think you kind of expect more, even though he's past all his injuries and stuff. But yeah, either way, it is a bit concerning that he's still doing that stuff. And maybe we'll see what happens this weekend against Stanford, who should be a better team and do have a little bit of better players on the outside as well that he will be defending. But like I said, hopefully he just decides to switch positions, and I think that could be way better for him, especially in his NFL future coming up. And yes, during the game, a local LA wide receiver from Los Alamitos committed mid-game. It was kind of crazy. His name is Jamiron, I hope I'm saying that correct, Baker. And yeah, I guess they reported it after the game that at some point in the middle of it that he had committed. He is from the 2026 class as a wide receiver, but I believe he's not ranked at the moment because it's obviously pretty far away, but maybe not be considered as talented. But I'm pretty sure he will be a 3-star pretty quickly after this, and hopefully build that up to a 4-star status at least at some point by the time he gets to USC. But yeah, either way, it was pretty crazy that they got one right in the middle excuse me, of the game. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And yeah, I don't really watch ESPN's College Game Day. I don't even think I can with Spectrum and the way they are fighting with ESPN and stuff. But yeah, I guess this last weekend on Saturday, Lee Corso, one of the older analysts on there, picked USC to win the national championship, which I would have taken any other day, but Lee Corso has been getting up in years and has kind of, made some weird claims and stuff, especially with his picks and football knowledge. So I don't know if I should really trust that pick and that, belief in my team, but I guess I'll take it either way because I'm still talking about it. So, but either way, yeah, still dealing with that Spectrum stuff. Haven't really heard much. I guess I will get credited if something does end up happening where it goes into the next billing cycle. But yeah, it is kind of weird that it's still going on because other times this has happened with other companies. It's only taken a couple days. It's been more than a couple days, but it is the start of a new week today. But of course, it is the long holiday, so maybe they won't be able to do that. And plus, I missed out on the top game last night, Florida State against LSU. Did catch highlights on YouTube, but still not the same. And then also, Duke has a big game tonight against Clemson on where ESPN or ABC, so most likely will not be able to watch it other than highlights after. And I don't go to the YouTube channel of ESPN to watch those highlights. I go to some other people who do highlights themselves on their own channel, and I support them because I'm not supporting ESPN at the moment. And then, yeah, Lincoln Riley, right after the game, did start off with a statement and had a couple questions asked about Christian Roland Wallace and why he was suspended for the first half of the game on Saturday. And of course, it stemmed from, as we mentioned the other day, about like a fight or something, altercation that happened, like a big brawl during the rivalry game of Arizona and ASU last year. Even like 3 or 4 other players, like I said, were suspended from that game this year that are still in college. But he even especially came out and said that he tried to talk to the NCAA to get a full explanation as to why, because they look back at whatever footage they can get and saw that their player, Roland Wallace, wasn't even close to doing anything that was considered suspendable or ejection-wise. And he even talked to the Arizona head coach as well, Judfish, and he even said he didn't know why Roland Wallace was being involved in this at all, even at that time. And especially the fact that, because the NCAA said, well, it's too late in the process, and it's like, yeah, but you barely told us like the other day that this was happening, instead of telling us to do this the first week as well, like how I mentioned in that video, which is why it's weird that they skipped that first game and did it on week 1 instead of week 0. But yeah, either way, it's good look, at least for Riley, to step up for his player. And he obviously mentioned, yeah, it could land this guy a stigma when it comes to NFL scouts, because now they're going to ask him questions as to why he was suspended, even if it was for a half. It could maybe knock him down, but as long as he plays well enough, then that should get overlooked. And as he is explaining it in his interviews and all that stuff, it should be fine. But yeah, it was a weird situation, but not that surprised that the NCAA is, giving the crap to USC, because even like a lot of the stuff that happened during the game, some of those calls were pretty bad, even when it came from the officials as well. So can't wait to see what happens when it's, real Pac-12 referees and it's a Pac-12 game, and, the likes of Washington come and play Coliseum, or USC goes on the road to play at Oregon as well. So either way, yeah, it's going to be very interesting overall. So yes, thanks for watching, people. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Bye.